I can't believe the words that are about to come out of my mouth, but James Gunn just announced the Superman sequel, Man of Tomorrow, and all I gotta say is the gun never jams, it just reloads, and it just unloaded two more for you. Because not only did we find out what the Superman sequel is titled, but we also got some casting announcements for the film, and some massive story details and hints and teases of what the future of the DCU's got in store for us. And on top of that, we also got some very interesting updates for the Batman Part 2, and so much more. And you know me, if I start seeing some dots in the sky, I'm gonna make them connect because I got a brain blast. And either way, me and you know what we gotta do, we gotta talk about it. First things first, rest in peace, Uncle Phil. But for real, like a Randy Orton RKO out of nowhere, James Gunn just decided to post this image on his various social media platforms of Lex Luthor and Superman in the style of the DC Universe suits, and simply just put Man of Tomorrow in theaters July 9th, 2027. Huh? What'd you say? Yeah, that's right, I did not stutter. We're already getting a sequel, a pseudo-sequel to Superman in 2 years. But not only that, with the image that he provided, he's confirming that both David Cornsweet and Nicholas Hoult are going to be reprising their roles as Superman Clark Kent and Lex Luthor respectively. They're destined to do this dance forever. Because I'm not gonna hold you, Superman gotta get that lick back plus for 1A, 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 1A. And by the way, making this announcement with some of the most legendary comic artists providing you with the images is just insane levels of putting your nuts on a table and saying, here, deal with it. Because the image he posted is directly from Jim Lee, the GOAT, but we also have one of the mini GOATs in Jorge Jimenez, whose art style I thoroughly enjoy, being reposted by David Cornsweet and Nicholas Hoult, amongst some others. And the common theme I'm seeing is that we got both Superman and Lex. And by the way, Lex got his mech suit. I used to pray for times like this. And I'm just saying, we got other folks like Isabella Merced resharing this post and saying, see you soon, with Aaron Pierre, who's gonna be playing Jon Stewart, saying, yes, indeed. On a couple of different fronts, this is very important news, very important news. This basically confirms that we're gonna be seeing Hot Girl and Green Lantern in this film too. It's most likely gonna be a giant ensemble. So it looks like this is the film that James Gunn said he already wrote a big treatment for, that's gonna be the next one in the Superman saga. And if we take David Zaslav's words into account of this next film being a part of the Superman family, at the time, I speculated that this could mean that we're gonna get a team up between Superman, Supergirl, and Krypto. And I need that more than ever because I need to see what the cousins are talking about. But before we move forward and theorize what the story could be about for Man of Tomorrow, let's take a moment to digest what the title of Man of Tomorrow could really mean. The first thing I'll say about the name Man of Tomorrow, I think it's funny they decided to cut out Woman of Tomorrow for the Supergirl movie. Maybe this is the reason why they did that. But more importantly, Man of Tomorrow could be hinting at a couple of different storylines. There is a Man of Tomorrow animated film which features Parasite, Lobo, amongst some other characters, which is directly adapted from the comics of the same name. Now, if we just look at that on the surface level, we can assume that the villain for this film could potentially end up being Parasite, who, if you're a Superman fan, you should be all too familiar with, but essentially, he is what he is, a parasite, and he drains you of your life force and strength and just grows stronger and stronger and stronger. So Parasite could potentially be the villain, but if we take 1 second and remember this drawing of a storyboard from one of the behind-the-scenes features of the Superman movie, which features Supergirl, Superman, and Krypto, but if you look, I know that ain't who I think it is right here. I think more than likely the main villain of Man of Tomorrow is going to end up being Brainiac. For starters, he's just a villain that we haven't seen in a live-action movie, at least. He was supposed to be in Kevin Smith's Superman with Nicolas Cage, and is just a villain that everybody is itching to see in live action. If anyone can bring him to life, it's probably James Gunn. But the interesting thing about Brainiac, and I hope they kind of treat him like the animated series version where he's an overarching villain. I mean, I think he would be a good like main endgame villain for this first saga of Gods and Monsters. But I think James Gunn has a lot more story to tell with Krypton. And even though it was reiterated over and over and over that the message from his parents was legit, they really sent him to Earth to conquer it. But I think there's more to this story than meets the eye for sure. If you have someone like an alien artificial intelligence who saw the Kryptonians as some type of threat and wanted them, maybe he could have manipulated the message, which I think kind of undermines the whole message of the first movie, but I would like it because I wasn't the biggest fan of that. But regardless, I'm sure we're going to learn more in Supergirl's movie about Krypton, because that whole movie is basically a therapy session of her dealing with the traumatic loss of her people. Which brings me back to Man of Tomorrow and who is in that film, Lobo. And guess where Jason Momoa is going to be making his first appearance as Lobo? That's right, in the Supergirl movie, which was once titled Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, but is now titled Supergirl. Hit the quick bio on what this film is going to be about and why you should be excited. Moving on to James Gunn talking about Lobo and Supergirl. That man James, as much as I love him, could not wait to unzip Jason Momoa as Lobo's pants and glaze the fuck out of them. He simply said Lobo is freaking awesome. Jason Momoa is so, oh my god, yeah. Lobo is great. Yeah, in case you forgot, Jason Momoa is playing Lobo in the new DC universe, and he's gonna appear in Supergirl. And I'm not gonna hold you, this is probably one of, if not the greatest superhero castings of all time. I'm just letting you know right now, get ready to fall in love with Lobo the same way you fell in love with Peacemaker. Because even though they're adapting Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow for the new Supergirl movie, Lobo never appeared in that story, so it looks like they're going to be taking some elements of this Brave and the Bold Supergirl Lobo comic. Shout out Mark Waid. So I hope they adapt some of these classic panels like this or like this, because in case you didn't know, she is not Kal-El. She built different for real, and I kind of need that. And you can bet your bottom dollar that Lobo's going to get a solo movie, solo series, something. I mean, hopefully we get a little classic Lobo and Superman Superman fight before they ultimately end up teaming together to stop whatever the oncoming threat is. That or Lobo probably just isn't even in this movie because it seems like they're going to be introducing a lot in this film. Because again, going back to Man of Tomorrow, this could be their opportunity to finally introduce a live action version of Martian Manhunter on a big screen. And you, me, your grandma, your granny, everybody in there, mom, wants a live action version of Jean-Jean's, which we never got the conclusion of in the DCEU. And I'm not done yet, because if we're led to believe that the Blue Beetle movie is in fact canon to the DC universe, don't forget there was Oreo Packet looking at this video of Ted Kord stuck in some type of multiversal shenanigan bullshit. And whose favorite food is Oreos? He's been living amongst us, hiding. Now he's ready for his close-up in Man of Tomorrow. I'm calling it. But what has me even more excited is the fact that we have Nicholas Hoult returning as Lex Luthor, who's not just going to be a D1 hater. We're most likely going to see different shades, different flavors of this performance and get a little bit more depth than just being, I fucking hate you, I'm going to start and incite a fucking war amongst two different countries just so I have an excuse to kill you. And yes, it's dope that he's most likely going to be getting his mech suit. Because again, going back to the images, it looks like we're going to be getting them teaming up just based on the way they're looking at each other and like reluctantly teaming up to stop whatever the big threat is, whether it be Parasite or Brainiac. I think Superman's going to realize, damn, we need someone who probably understands this shit more than we do to help out. Which, if we look at the MCU for comparison, the relationship between the two is going to be very similar to Loki and Thor in Thor the Dark World. Actually, matter of fact, if we use a DCEU comparison, it would be like Aquaman 2 with Arthur and Orm teaming up in that movie, which is essentially a rescan version of Thor the Dark World anyway. But I just can't wait to see what their dynamic is going to be like with reluctantly having to team up. Like, that's going to be so fucking funny. And then, of course, we could probably get the Lex Luthor trying to be president stuff if he manipulates his way into that title some way, somehow. It would be the most Lex Luthor shit ever, because he's a bald-headed demon. Which brings me to the casting news that Palm Clementif will indeed star in Man of Tomorrow, thanks to the Hollywood Reporter. And all I gotta say is, Lord have mercy, 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 mercy. Because if she is not Lex Luthor's right-hand woman, Mercy Graves, what the fuck are we doing? Because we all knew, watching Superman, that the engineer was basically a stand-in for Mercy Graves, who is essentially a robotically enhanced fucking individual too, just so he could set up the Authority movie, which he's having trouble writing right now. So it's like, should have just introduced Mercy Graves from the jump. But that's just who I think she's going to be playing. Let me know who you think she could be playing. I think Mercy is just the most logical option for real. Man of Tomorrow is either going to be planting the seeds to us finally getting our Justice League, or it'll be the first true film where we see our DCU Trinity on the big screen for the first time. And that film, its event and outcome is going to be the reason that they start the new Justice League, not the Justice Gang. Now, of course, still got to figure out who the fuck is playing Batman and Wonder Woman. But regardless, bro, I'm so fucking excited for this new DC universe. I think James Gunn is cooking. He's on a pretty right trajectory. And he really just out here unloading the fucking magazines. My bad, he's gun loading. And to wrap up on the nice little Superman news before we move into the Batman news, Superman officially soared to $611 million worldwide on a $225 million budget. So all in all, it's not a great success, but it's a success nonetheless, which directly led to them fast-tracking and greenlighting Man of Tomorrow, which is still insane to me that it has an official release date of 2027 already. We're all but surely going to be getting more casting news within probably the next couple of months, and filming is probably going to start in like 6 months. I mean, we already got the first bit of casting news that Palm Clementif is going to be joining the film, so we'll probably learn who's going to be attached to this film sooner rather than later. Could one of those people be Robert Pattinson's The Batman? I don't know. There's mixed signals being sent on if this movie's going to merge or not. I'm leaning towards, I hope they keep it separate. But we got the Batman Part 2 news regardless, as we learn that it's set to begin filming April 2026. So just a couple more months till we find out who's going to be in this movie, who the cast is, who the villain is. Ooh, I'm excited. Colin Farrell has officially started reading the script, and he just called it extraordinary. Oh yeah, and if that don't have you hyped, guess when the Batman Part 2 is set to release? 2027. My brother in Christ, we are getting a Superman sequel in 2027, a Batman sequel in 2027, and a Spider-Man sequel in 2027. What are we talking about? All I know is it's a great day to be a comic book fan, a comic book movie fan, and I'm just smiling ear to ear like I'm the Joker. Ooh! But either way, that's all the new news and updates we got about the future of the DC Universe, the Superman sequel, my thoughts, theories, and opinions. Let me know what you think about all of this down in the comments below. And as always, like and follow for more.